So we talked about the concept of cardiac output and about stroke volume, and then we talked a little bit about cardiac index, how we can adjust the how much blood circulates throughout the body, adjusted for on average about 5 to 6 liters are pumped throughout the body per minute. But you can certainly adjust that to the person's body size. Some people are taller, some people are shorter, some people are smaller, some people are bigger. And somebody that's smaller might circulate 3 liters, somebody that's bigger might circulate 6.5. And they call that cardiac index when you adjust that cardiac output to the person's size, weight, and what have you. Another concept related to cardiac output is the ejection fraction. And this is an important concept to get down when we talk about heart failure. So under normal circumstances, when you look at the ejection fraction, your stroke volume, again, is how much is ejected from the left ventricle each time that left ventricle contracts. So how much, when it contracts, how much blood does it actually eject? Now, the left ventricle, it doesn't squeeze dry. It doesn't eject everything that's in there. After diastole, there's usually about 140 milliliters of blood that's in that left ventricle after diastole has occurred. And then the heart then is going through systole and is contracting. But it won't eject out that whole 140. It usually ejects out about half to maybe a little less than half. And that's the stroke volume, again, how much it ejects out with each contraction. You'll take the stroke volume and you're going to compare that to what stays behind, because again, it's not going to squeeze dry. And what stays behind is referred to as the end diastolic volume. Sometimes students don't like that. They like the term end systolic volume better, because they're saying, well, that's the end volume after systole has occurred. If you like this term better, fine. But what's happening here is that we're comparing how much goes out, stroke volume, compared to how much stays behind, and we can call that the end diastolic volume or the end systolic volume. So for the ejection fraction, to get that, you're going to take the stroke volume, how much is ejected out, and divide that by the end diastolic volume or end systolic volume, if you like that term better. And normally what you get is about 60 to 75%. That's what a normal one is. Now, when I was a nursing student and I was learning this concept and I was in clinical, I remember the nurse that I was working with said that the person had had an echocardiogram done and they had an ejection fraction of 75%, and she was really surprised because she expected that it would be lower. And but she was really surprised by that. She was expecting it to be worse. And I remember saying, wow, 75%, that's really bad. I mean, in nursing school, you're not going to pass with a 75%. You need at least an 80% or above. And then she's talked to me about ejection fraction, explained that a little better. So anyway, so normal is 60 to 75%. So let's say we have here that what goes out, stroke volume, let's say 60 milliliters goes out. Okay. So 60 milliliters gets ejected out, and then what ends up staying behind in the heart is 80 milliliters, and that would be the end diastolic volume or end systolic volume, if you like that term better. So if anybody has a calculator, when you calculate that, you divide 60 by 80, and then multiply that by 100, we get 75%. So this person would have a normal ejection fraction, so that it's working just fine. But let's say we start having less go out, and then more stays behind, because if less goes out, it makes sense that more is going to stay behind. So let's say now 55 goes out, and 85 stays behind. You can imagine that that ejection fraction is thus going to go down. So now we've gone down to 65%. So let's say now that even less is going out and even more is staying behind. So now we have 45 that goes out and 95 that stays in, or stays behind, and now our ejection fraction has gone down to 47%, and now that's not normal. What do you think might be happening that's causing less to go out and more to stay behind? And usually it can be related to heart failure. So as the heart's really losing its ability to really fill with blood and to really contract or eject that blood out, it's losing its pumping ability or its ability to really pump efficiently, and less goes out and more stays behind. And we're definitely going to revisit that concept when we talk about heart failure. Where do you think this would eventually start to back up to? Or what do you think is happening to that end diastolic or insystolic volume or pressure as less is going out and more is staying behind? Right. That pressure, or that volume is going to increase. Less goes out, more stays behind. It's going to back up, it's going to back up, it's going to back up. So knowing the normal circulation of the heart, where do you think that's eventually going to back up to? That's right. Eventually it's going to back up to the lungs or to that pulmonary circulation. And that can certainly happen with heart failure, where they start to get symptoms such as shortness of breath and crackles. But what I want to explain here is just what a normal ejection fraction is, and I hope I did that. Thank you.